Sorry, I mentioned these other things.
That's okay. We weren't recording and we didn't start the meeting, so no problem, sir. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Tuxedo Local Development Corporation meeting for November 17th, 2023. Call this to order at 11:04 a.m. First on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to take a perusal?
I read it online.
Any additions or edits suggested? No, I'll make a motion to accept. Sorry, please go ahead.
One thing, on the project updates, those are the actual disbursements, right? Not the commitments.
Project updates. Julie, can you just clarify that?
Yes, those were the disbursements made as of September 12th.
Okay. I think it would be good if we knew what the commitments are, which is a larger number, obviously.
Well, yeah, I'd have to go through each of the award letters, and that's no problem. I can do that and maybe report out at the end of this meeting. I'll do that while we're, working on other activities.
Yeah, I'm just curious what that commitment number is. And granted, if I went back through all the records, I could have figured it out too, but I didn't.
So we can approve the minutes and you could just insert those numbers, Julie. So we'll approve the minutes with notation that you'll insert those numbers into this minutes.
Okay, I could do that.
So I'll make a motion to accept and approve the minutes from September 12th, 2023. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by John Bagno. Any further discussion, board members? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move to the review of applications for grant funding. First on our list is the Reggie Bar, which we've been considering for quite some time. I know there's been some concerns raised about the property being up for sale, and I'd like to ask our attorney, Rachel Barinello, to opine about those concerns, and if you can, Rachel, that would be great.
Sure. So as the board may recall, we had sent a letter to the owner of Reggie Bar and the owner of the building, asking that the owner of the building acknowledge and receipt of the letter and consent to the improvements that the Reggie Bar had requested. Right. And that's a requirement in our guidelines that we get landlord approval when a tenant is submitting. So we got that. We have since learned that the building is for sale. Thank you to the board members who brought that to our attention. So that does create an issue because we have a situation where we don't potentially have owner consent if the building sells. We could be in the middle of improvements, which could be problematic. Improvements could get stopped. So I think at this point we need to understand better from the applicant what's going on with the building, and see where we can go from there. But I don't think at this time, given the uncertainty around ownership, that we're in a position to approve the grant funds.
That makes sense.
So I also would be concerned that my understanding is that the lease that Reggie Bar has is relatively short term, shorter than the required occupancy in the guidelines, right? We have to have if I remember correctly, if I took these monies for a building that I owned and then I sold the building in less than 3 years, I think I would have to give the money back, kind of thing.
Correct.
So I'm not sure that we have a lease that extends long enough to commit the owner to maintain the improvements for that 3-year period, kind of thing also.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
But you said that we need more information from the owner, so we're gonna look to do what? We're gonna send a letter to Reggie Bar and the owner saying, what's the information that we're looking for that we could make a decision on this, as opposed to,
That's a good question, Jay. I don't know that really any, for the reasons you just articulated, I don't know that really even any further information puts us in a position to approve grant funds. You know, if we learned that as a result of the sale, the bar has a 5-year lease, there's the new owner, but I think that there's enough in question with the building right now that we certainly can't. I just would rather make sure we're operating with all the relevant facts before saying that this isn't an eligible application.
Is there a potential that in his lease, there's a provision that his lease is transferable upon change of ownership?
We didn't take a look at that, which also, you know, is another consideration. I, we want the lease just to see that for some diligence, but I haven't analyzed the lease. I don't practice landlord tenant law. So it's also getting into, is this really the scope that the board wants your council to undertake for the administration of that particular loan? I can have a partner certainly take a look at the lease, but that seems like a lot of diligence to be done.
Yeah, on the board side, which should be coming from the applicant, I believe, you know, the
Right.
applicant should be able to demonstrate that he has a solid lease for 3 years and resubmit that documentation for consideration. I think, in my mind right now, we're holding the application open but not approving it. And
Right.
subsequent to further evidence that he has a solid lease.
But
Well, right now, I think it's kind of risky because there's so many unknowns.
Right.
You don't even know when the sale would go through. It could go through tomorrow, it could go through next year. I mean,
could go through in 10 years, because, you know,
Yeah.
look
Right.
at the history of sales here. I think that, putting my devil's advocate hat on, if I was the applicant and you're telling me this, my question is, what is the board looking for? It needs to be we need to be able to articulate what the piece of paper is that we're looking for to be able to consider the application. I think, Ken, you had it right there. We need a lease that shows a full term, right? For
Irrevocable.
right.
that binds the new owners of the property to the terms of the lease.
Right, and that would be between the seller and the buyer. I mean, he could put that in.
Well, that would be the lease. I mean, it's not unusual to have a lease that says my tenancy
Exactly,
is with the building, not with the owner.
right.
But I think also that's on the applicant to provide.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, I can't see us expending consultant capital
Right, no, I agree.
for an application that.
It makes no
is in question.
sense.
But, so now who tells the applicant that?
Well, I think Julie and Rachel would just.
Yeah,
follow
we can talk to the applicant. If he can demonstrate that and point us to the sections in the lease that show that it would survive the sale and it's a 3-year lease and, you know, the improvements, I'll stay there. You know, then I think that helps. But I think it's worth Julie and I having a conversation with the applicant and seeing if we can get that minimal amount of information.
So Rachel, do I need to make a motion to basically table this application for further consideration and communication?
Yes, let's
with
table
the-
it.
Okay, so I'll make that motion to table the application for Brad Ewing and doing business as Reggie Bar. I'll make that motion, ask for a second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Irene Denaro. So now obviously our comment is we're waiting for that correspondence between Harris Beach and the applicant to just clarify what we were just discussing. So I don't think I need to reiterate that.
Yep,
All in-
agreed.
Any further discussion on that?
I'm good.
All in favor?
Aye.
What about Mitch's and I?
Okay.
Yeah,
Mitch?
I forget about Mitch.
No, we
Yeah,
can't forget.
that's right. I'm following along. And if I have something different to add, I'll speak up, but you all said everything I was thinking.
Great. All right, second application. I tried to print it, a lot of the diagrams, when I printed it, couldn't fit. Julie, could you bring up that application on your screen? And I might have to push a button, yeah, I'm not sure. So our second applicant is the Tuxedo Historical Society. I believe everybody on the board received at least the digital version of the project.
Yes.
Here we go.
Great. So we do have a cover letter from Miss Elizabeth Langberg. I'll read that. Project description, interior renovations to the historic former bank building. Renovation includes the demolition of existing walls, doors, soffits, bathroom and kitchenette, and the construction of a new entry area and bathroom, the installation of a new tile floor, and the painting of the existing walls and new walls and doors. This building, historic building, is an important feature in our town's history. It was built in 1925 and had previously served as the town bank. We are eager to restore the building interior while providing an improved bathroom facility and showcase facility to present Tuxedo's rich history. Benefit to the community, we have completed the exterior renovations and are proud of the improvements and the beauty it adds to the downtown area, and now must complete our work. As the historical archives and the projected growth in town of Tuxedo, we look forward to telling the Tuxedo story and hosting our first exhibit there once the interior work is complete. We once again look to the LDC to partner with us for the benefit of the entire town. Sincerely, Elizabeth Langberg, President. Okay. I can tell you, I just actually drove to the Tuxedo Historical Society, and, you know, the project that was before us before has been completed. They got their CEO, and if you haven't been over there, I think, actually, they've done a great job. Have you been over there yet, John?
Yeah,
New doors up and
I've
everything.
I've seen it. We walked through it that one day, and I ride past there a lot.
Right.
Sign, the landscaping, even down to the garbage bin receptacle. So I just wanted to mention that
Very well done.
they've completed everything. So,
So I mean, I looked at the project, what they're proposing is very reasonable and will really improve the space and give them an ADA compliant bathroom and all that kind of stuff. I just have two questions. The first question is, do we have any limitations on the number of grants that we can give to the same organization? Right? So,
why don't we stop, pause for that?
so that's the first one.
I think she answered that already.
Yeah,
Yes, but I want to get it on the record.
yeah. It's 250.
So, Rachel and/or Julie,
No, we do not have a limitation.
okay, so that's kosher. I read the application and they presented a single quote for the work, which is from the, if I understand correctly, it's from the people who recently completed the exterior renovation.
That is correct.
Right.
It's my understanding that we require a minimum of 2 or 3 bids on a project.
I believe it's 2.
Can we waive that, especially since this is essentially a change order to their original contract, or do we have to make them go get a second bid?
We have the authority and the guidelines to waive the requirement for a second quote. It's, if you have the guidelines there, it's on the second page under the second list of bullets.
And we don't, I mean, it's not a hardship waiver. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, so it's not like we tried to get 3 bids, but we couldn't. It's just we can waive it because we
Yeah,
feel like.
at the board's discretion.
Got it. Thanks. I have no
And I
others.
believe we did that already for a project where they had one bid. We did,
Okay.
Yes.
but good question.
I have a couple concerns with this. Maybe I missed it, but when we were looking at the first application from the Historical Society, I don't recall that there was going to be a phase two. Was that discussed?
Well,
I-
I
I
have
don't
some
think so.
I don't know.
information I might add to that. I mean, this is basically a volunteer organization, and, you know, they have limited funding, of which, you know, they, obviously, as part of this application, you have to disclose what that income source is. And, you know, I think they were just really being prudent and not overextending, you know, what their financial resources were. So I know the intention was always there to complete this work, because the way even though they have a CO right now, the interior of the building is lacking, so.
Well, it's-
But
yes.
just to answer John's question, he's correct. I think the focus was on the outside.
Oh, yeah, oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, no
Well,
doubt.
shame on me for not kind of anticipating that it was set up as a bank and not as a museum, kind of.
Right.
But that's water over the dam.
So are your concern is that this was sort of like a segmentation issue?
Yes, because where I come from, in the corporate world, even if a project had multiple phases, you had to present all the phases when you were asking for funding. And if you did not, and you went back and said, oh, by the way, we need more money, heads would roll in that case. So that kind of bothers me. Their existing building down here near Town Hall, what are they gonna do with that?
That I would.
Hopefully, they're not gonna come back for a third time to say, oh, we have to do this and this before we can sell it.
Well, who owns
They
that
wouldn't be able to get
building?
money for that.
Yeah, well,
Do you know?
part of the earlier discussion was, can you come back for a second grant? And it was determined, yes. But there's a cap to any applicant of $250,000. When they finish this one, they'll be in the 200 range. And I think also what would further restrict them from doing stuff like that is looking at their bank book balance. You know, I think the hope is really to get this project finished, of course, with their matching funds, which, you know, I think it would leave them with a bank book balance of about $100,000. And so I think really what they're hoping to do is get this building usable so that, you know, people become interested in the Historical Society in a renewed way. And, you know, it's obviously an institution that depends on donors. And so.
And then my final concern is, while this board is still valid until the end of the year, it's going to have at least one new member, I think, right? Maybe more than that.
Yeah.
We don't know what's gonna happen to any of us really on this board. So I'm wondering is, what I'm questioning is kind of potentially on our way out, whether we should approve this.
And John, I had, if you don't mind, just jumping in, I had a concern a little different, but also a concern. And this might be a little self-serving or selfish, but I'll throw it on the table. The building looks fantastic as you drive by it and look at it. So no doubt it has improved the streetscape of that area of town, which is, I think, one of the very important goals of our group. So I was a little concerned that their next swing at this is their interior, which will not address the streetscape. And there are other items on the streetscape that could use some attention. And we all, not we, you all drive by it all the time. I drive by it periodically or sporadically, and you can see those facades that you kind of roll your eyes and say, how is that person not attacking this? And maybe they simply don't know that they could come to us and for, I believe it's up to $10,000, they don't have to do matching grants. And that 10,000 would go a long way to enhancing various frontage issues for some of the local businesses. So my concern was, while I can respect and appreciate the value of improving their interior to facilitate the utility of that building and its in the way they intend to use it, our funds are not unlimited. And is there a better way that we can put them to use to benefit the entire community?
Now, those are good points, Mitch. I would endorse
I
your
mean,
concern.
I think that the mandate of this LDC is not solely exterior beautification. I mean, the bylaws and the purpose clearly include a whole range of things that are more related to business development, right? So money for interior fit outs, money for equipment. I mean, theoretically, you could get a grant to buy a piece of property and build something or put housing on top of an existing building or something like that if you get really down into the weeds. That being said, I'm not completely convinced that the interior fit out of the Historical Society is business development, as they don't generate
It's not a business.
business. I will also say that we have had an incredibly difficult time getting people to take free money.
Yes.
And I had a site walk with Michelle and Deirdre, and we had that same conversation, not obviously not in the context of this board, but in the context of, doesn't that business know that they can really pop their sign could look beautiful if they came to this board and for just a couple thousand, let alone 10,000, it would greatly enhance their marketing, perhaps their business and the streetscape. So maybe there's an outreach part of our, not that any of us need more work, but maybe there's an outreach part of our effort that needs to happen.
Well, I'd like you to know that a lot of outreach was done, Mitch.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Literally knocking on the doors and calling the property owners. Letters were sent to every one of those property owners, probably the businesses that you walked by. But I want to go back to the notion of the Historical Society not being a business. The Historical Society is a really important quasi-municipal agency that absolutely welcomes the new residents that were going to be coming here, and is actually like a welcoming center, especially with the new building where it's situated. It's a quasi meeting space for the town, and so run by volunteers. So that we're not putting money into some business entity's pocket as well. In my view, this is really benefiting the town of Tuxedo and not a private owner of a business. So,
Well, let me add to that. I think with the expansion of the Historical Society, it was noted that they want to use that space as a community center and also open it up to the seniors in Tuxedo that do not have a senior center.
and it's a volunteer opportunity for a lot of seniors.
Right. And it's more accessible to some of the seniors that couldn't make the steps and the narrow walkways in the old building. So I think, the whole idea was to open it up more to the community than what it has been, because that other building was just,
A big part of the mission statement of this LDC is also to encourage people to come to town. The Historical Society and this flagship iconic building is certainly directly across from the train station that we just renovated, directly at the gates of Tuxedo Park, next to the Tuxedo Square, unfortunately, that's also up for sale, is really one of the few destinations that we have in town that would be open to the public. And so I would underscore that is a major part of the mission statement of this LDC, is to encourage tourism and community building here in the hamlet of Tuxedo.
Does that, the Historical Society, the property is off the tax rolls as a nonprofit?
I wouldn't venture to answer that question because it's never been posed to me, but.
Just
Rachel,
know everything that you said is important, as well as the fact that it's an asset to the community as they want to expand the use of the building for residents and community.
And, and as far as the management of the first project, I mean,
It went smooth.
not only
Yeah.
smoothly,
Yeah.
but when I just walked around and looked at the quality and
Yeah.
depth of the work that was done, this was the whole notion of trying to do matching funds, is to make sure that the people the entities that are benefiting from it are really watching the pennies and making sure the job is done right. Well, I could absolutely say.
And as a
it's-
nonprofit, they stepped up with matching funds.
Yeah.
When we had some issues with business owners that didn't want to match funds.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I mean, that says a lot, too. That's my
Yeah,
opinion.
to go back to the question about the tax status, I don't know whether the building is on the tax rolls or not. That your assessor should be able to provide that information,
Right.
what roll section the building is sitting on.
well, the bank was certainly on the tax rolls. Well,
Certainly,
Right.
certainly.
I would hope.
Right.
Well, I mean, you could go back to the renovation of the Tuxedo train station. Obviously, that's not on the tax rolls. That's a town property. So that's never been,
No, it's not a
bylaws.
requirement of the guidelines that it be a for-profit business or entity at all. And the status of the property also not something that is a condition in the guidelines.
I mean, in my view, it's more of a benefit rather than a negative, because, when you're giving up to $250,000 to a commercial entity, well, that's really benefiting somebody's own bottom line as opposed to the community's bottom line.
Right.
And again, the LDCs are supposed to be about building community. And, Mitch, to your point about, we will still have about over $500,000 of money sitting in this LDC, and I'd like to make sure you understand, Mitch, that the original funding for the LDC started in 2008. I'm pretty sure I have that date right. And so, Mitch, every year that the LDC is in business, we're paying fees for the director's insurance, paying our
Yeah.
wonderful consultants, and, it's been just, I gotta say, mismanagement, because that's not what this LDC, in my view, if you're doing your job right, we should be looking forward to going out of business, because we took care. And Mitch, because I've been speaking to you about this even before your time here on this board, that the vision, I think, of this board was to try to get the Hamlet Route 17 thriving. So when Tuxedo Reserve, I believe we're going back to now, comes to where we are now, that people will see this town as a thriving community. And so I think the notion of supporting a not-for-profit in its truest sense, not-for-profit, that benefits this community, I stand behind it 100%.
And I appreciate your comments, Ken, and I found everything you said to be quite compelling about the value of the building, not just in the exterior, but in a finished interior to the community, is persuasive to my view. And I'm thinking, that as Lennar moves along with its new community, it'll be another marketing effort to say that there's a lot of positives going on here, including for those of you that are looking for something very local and to get a sense of history or maybe a meeting place. Here you go. And I do appreciate the fact that it has that direct access to the train station. And if it is a tourism opportunity, so be it. I can't foreclose that possibility. So I do want to go back to a point where we kind of started, where Jay started us with the possibility of getting a second bid. And I don't say that for any reason except when you're in that couple $100,000 range, it just feels like there should be a second bid so that we're not in a spot where someone's saying, well, you've waived it a couple times. Why do I have to go through that trouble of getting another bid?
Well, my response to that, in the first round, they did have to get second bids, and the contractor that they selected, quite frankly, is very well known and respected. But that besides, the track record of the first project, to me, makes it evident that this is a company that could just pick it up and get the job done in a timely fashion with quality work that's clearly verifiable to any eye. And I got to tell you, our new building inspector is very thorough, okay? He made sure that every detail was attended to. And so I think there's a uniqueness in this second application that the track record is there, and so I think I've said.
Okay. No, you're right. I appreciate that there's some distinctions that make this unique, and that helps me get around to your point.
Do we know, and I agree that the work that has been done is very good, very nice. Do we know that there were no extra charges from the contractor? Did he adhere to the original quotation?
Yes, because all the bills were paid.
Right.
And, there was no further change order charges. So that tab has been settled,
Yeah, the last invoice was.
Yeah.
Sent it out.
totally settled, yeah.
And while I like the idea of a second bid, there is also an advantage to have the same contractor continue, a contractor that is familiar with the codes of the town, and the town's familiar with previous work they've done. So there's something to be said for keeping the same one.
Okay, my questions have been satisfied. Thank you.
And the only other thing I'd say, to go back to a point that you raised, John, about whether we should be approving something in what's probably the last meeting of this administration of the LDC, which is an item that I'm wrestling with on a number of other boards that I'm currently on. I don't see an issue with it. I think we're within the mandate where we are not binding future generations to a legal, this isn't a point of code or I think this is our business, and we can't put everything off until the next guys show up.
I agree that we're certainly within the letter of the law. I raised that just as kind of the spirit of.
I agree with you, and I think even in the spirit of this, I don't see that it's not like we're pardoning a bunch of murderers on our way out of the door of the office.
And I think we did a good job. this LDC board.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think we did a good job and we moved several projects forward that has never happened before. Not to this extent.
And
So-
again, I'll remind everybody, there's about $500,000 still sitting on the table. And, to questions about have we reached out to stakeholders? My God, yes, we
yes.
have. And part of the strategy also was, if these are actually show up property owners, well then, as they're driving up and down Route 17, what are you missing? Do you have blinders on? So it's like, come on, join the party. There's still a lot of money here on the table, but you got to put up, look, we changed this is what this board did in the bylaws. We changed to matching funds, okay? We raised the level of accountability in this LDC on steroids, okay? And we have held people to these new, we have some leeway in trying to move things forward, and I think we've done so prudently. And so I think it actually obligates us to continue doing that rather than going back to what was happening in the past. And that's not meant to be finger pointing. It's just the truth.
It's the truth.
It was just, the money was sitting there and it just got eaten away in fees. Come on, the only way this LDC does something is by moving project forward.
And I don't have and Ken, I don't have a concern about moving it forward, even in the end of the term of some board members. That we got to do our job, do our business.
Right.
And I know I'm new to the party, so but that's my feeling is let's if we're ready, let's roll.
So I'm assuming because this application was placed in front of this board, Rachel and Julie, that the consideration that you raised for us was probably articulated by Jay, right? That we didn't get a second bid. We've discussed that. Any other concerns that you had that you wanted us to kind of weigh in on?
I don't have any concerns. I think, I would note that the board did, when developing the guidelines, consider the possibility of funding interior improvements, which this application is for all interior improvements. The guidelines allow the board to make those considerations and award on interior improvements as well. Just something to remind the board of.
Well, and I'll also remind, we've already done that. We've done that with the train station, with the
Carlin.
Augusta. Carlin was pretty much exclusively exterior, but certainly with Augusta Properties, that people know it as the old Orange Top Diner. And, I think this board basically opined that, we're trying to move these projects forward. And so anyway,
Yep.
I said I was.
But no concerns. I think it's a strong it's a complete application and meets our guidelines.
I personally don't have any further discussion. Anybody else on the board?
No.
So I'll make did we do a motion?
No.
We've just
Okay,
been
I'll make a
discussing.
motion to consider the application put before us by the Tuxedo Historical Society. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Irene Denaro. So,
Consider or approve?
well, consider and vote on
Okay.
approve, but I guess we kind of had a lot of our back and forth banter before I made the motion, but all that we said, plus if anybody else has anything else to add.
I'm good.
There's no further discussion. I'll take a roll call vote. Jay Reichcott?
I'm sorry, just to clarify, we're voting to approve the application.
That is correct, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Aye.
John Bagno?
I vote no.
Ken English, aye. Irene Denaro?
Aye.
And Mitch Newman?
Yes.
Okay. The motion passes. Project updates.
I put that on there, Ken, so you could just update on the existing awarded projects.
Yeah, as, as we've been discussing, the Historical Society's project, the original application has been totally completed and got their CO. Train station has been 95%. Jay and I were just over there. There's a few outstanding issues, but we approved, as per Sean Hoffman. We're still withholding about
10% probably, whatever.
yeah,
the-
at least 10%, I think actually a little more. So there's some minor details, there's still a window replacement that needs to happen, and not much more, actually.
Yeah, no, I think they gotta scrape some paint off a window and
Yeah.
we are substantially complete.
Certainly
And-
not enough to
and-
withhold 20,000.
Yeah, and very far along in the punch list.
Yeah. Scott Lesko, I've toured the building again. Most of the work is done. The biggest outstanding issue is the paving of the parking lot. And I know he was trying to run a sewer line from the
Existing.
proposed,
From the existing to the proposed, a new building,
right, and trying to lay it in there before the,
which
But-
makes sense.
I think one thing, Rachel and Julie, I think you and I, Julie, had looked back at the agreement. I think he has the possibility to go till April. I think we gave a 1-year absolute completion deadline. Is that correct, Julie?
That's correct. It would be April of 2024.
So, the application, we're only gonna pay as the work is verified complete. And the parking lot is the big one. Don't know exactly off the top of my head what the dollar figure was along that line. I have a feeling it was something north of 20-something thousand dollars, but regardless, no further disbursements have been made to Augusta Properties. The train station, Lennar came through with $140,000 after we approved the project, and again, that money has been deposited in the LDC and subsequently given to the applicant, the town, because the job is essentially completed, and so that's moved forward. And Carlin has been held up. Most of the work, I just drove by there again today.
Looks like it's done.
It's just about done. There's a little corner in the back side of the building on the north side. Orange and Rockland has an electrical line that feeds more than just his building, too close to that corner of the building, which makes it unsafe for the painters to finish, literally. I think they might have to hang off the roof and paint the side so that they don't get in the way, but I know I've been in communication with Orange and Rockland. I think it will be resolved soon, but it's been kind of like the thorn in the paw.
Yeah, I mean, soon come, it's gonna be too cold to finish painting, but,
Yeah,
but,
I think we could easily come up with a percentage complete that we can approve.
so, yeah.
So do I need to, I think it would probably behoove this board to give me the authority to determine with the building inspector, what percentage of this job is done so that we could at least close out. Does that make sense to you, Rachel? It seems like you're nodding yes.
Yes, that makes sense.
Do we need to do a motion on that, or?
I don't think so, no. I think that's within your authority as the chair of the board anyway.
Okay. So similarly, Lesko hasn't come before, we'll see what invoices he can submit to you guys. but
It sounds to me like this isn't something that you have to do as board chair, except maybe call up Mr. Bearduffel and say, get us an invoice for all the work done to date, with the explanation that you're waiting on O&R for the rest of it, so that we can process that.
and so from my understanding is I'd be able to do that if the paperwork was submitted to.
Yeah, exactly.
Harris Beach.
We're not doing anything, I don't think we have to do anything extraordinary to find a way to get him paid. He just needs to submit a progress invoice,
Okay.
especially since O&R moves at a, glacial pace, and it's about to be winter, so this work is gonna get postponed till the spring one way or another anyway.
It's true.
Right. And I wouldn't wanna inconvenience, or whatever the word would be, the applicant, because they've obviously,
Yeah, they're eager to get finished, so let's get them their money so they can pay their contractor for the work that's been done so far. It doesn't seem unreasonable to me.
well, I think we're up to the new business, and I don't think there is any. I think we've dealt with the new business.
Julie, were you able to get together or put together that total commitment number by any chance?
I haven't. What I'll do is
Okay.
circulate it as an email. I've been busy taking minutes, so I
All right.
haven't looked
No
it up.
problem, no problem, thank you.
But you've
I'll
got two
circulate an
hands.
email. 2 hands.
Thought you were talking.
No, sorry.
That's
No.
okay.
And then the only other question, I know that, have you guys been able to reach out to the incoming supervisor, who will be the incoming head of this board? I know, do you have contact information for him? Or is that the other board?
Well, Julie would probably have that from, because I reached out with regard to the Tuxedo Farms LDC, making sure all those consultants were aware of the changeover, and my advice was to reach out and help orient the new administration so that you have a smooth transition. And
Okay.
I'll participate in any way that I could be helpful. Let me be clear about that.
All right, so sorry, I guess I got my boards
LDCs.
confused, I got my LDCs confused again. So, as you probably know, new supervisor starting the first of the year, which means new chair of this board. We can get you contact information if you need it.
Yes, please. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're happy to reach out. It'll be a less intensive transition for this board than from Tuxedo Farms, just less involved, less consultants. But yeah, we'll do what we can do to help with the onboarding of the new administration.
Okay. Good.
Well, it's been a pleasure working with all of you guys. I think we've got a lot to be proud of and celebrate. Looking very much forward to, am I tipping your hand by Mitch by saying we're going back to Tuxedo Reserve as the name of the new development?
Yeah, we've had all kinds of internal marketing conversations and with related, and that's where we're landing. Just to be unreasonably blunt, we were having trouble finding the farm that we were naming the community after. So we said, how's this really going to work in the marketing effort? So anyway, there were some other names that were put out there, and they were kind of humorous. So we said, you know what, let's just stay on something easy. It worked once. Let's go back. Yeah, so that's where we're landing, Ken.
I don't know, you could probably work out some kind of lucrative name rights deal for the place.
Well, I have been in other situations where we take the name and then trademark it, and then when we find other people using it, you get a check. But I don't know if everyone's going to have an appetite for that. At one point, I remember sending a letter to the Trump organization probably 20 years ago saying you're using a name that I had trademarked. They wrote back, and I threw my letter in the trash. I said, "Oh, I messed with the wrong group." You gotta be careful. You send your fancy lawyer letter, and then you get hit with an atom bomb.
It must have said sue us.
Yeah, it said all the
don't like
things
it.
that made me go away. Yeah. Anyway, I'm off topic, and thank you for the opportunity to be on the board. And one meeting into it, but I have a lot of catching up to do. And Ken, we'll hope to keep the legacy you've set up going strong into the future.
Just let me get on the record that I think all of us appreciate your efforts, Ken, because you have done a lot of work on this. I know you went literally door to door
Right.
to try to spend some of this money, and you'll be missed on the board.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
You did a great job.
Thanks. Well, it's a pleasure working with all of you. You know, it takes a team, so. All right. I'm going to make a motion to adjourn at 11:54. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good
you.
holiday.
Have a good
Yes.
holiday.
You as well. Thank you so much.
Lot to
Bye.
be thankful for. Okay, bye.